everybody, and welcome to the Open Mic with myself, Jay Rice, and my co-host,
Jeffrey Ide.
The place where serious and silly complaints come to chat. Open Mic Gripe is a weekly podcast dedicated to hearing your gripes, grievances, and opinions on any and all topics.
Every episode, Jay and I will have an opportunity to get to the bottom of the issues which are lingering on the back of your mind, and engage in order to create a constructive conversation using a combination of lighthearted comedy and well-formed logic.
If you feel like we are wrong, inappropriate, or biased, and let's be honest, you probably will, then call in, email, or tweet and let your voice be heard. You can email us at openmicgripe@gmail.com or tweet to us at openmicgripe, and both of those are all one word, Open Mic Gripe.
So jump on in and gripe on the Open Mic with Jay Rice and Jeffrey Ide. Welcome back to Open Mic Gripe. I'm looking forward to this episode. We've actually got some interesting news for you. Jay, how would you like to start us off with a gripe this week?
Well, I was thinking about the way people talk about music, actually, and that kind of bothers me.
Well, you've already got me riled up.
Okay, well, that didn't take much. Okay, so here's the thing, is I used to have a mohawk, and I used to have a mohawk off and on for most of my life. Now, I don't listen to music. I listen to NPR. And so the thing was, is all the time people would say, "Oh, you must be in a band or something." And I'm like, "No, I just have a mohawk." And they're like, "Oh, but you must really love music then." And I'm like, "No, just having a hairstyle does not mean that you love any particular type of music." And like I said, I listen to NPR, so I don't know what they were talking about.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I think people seek to talk about music. I think music is a safe topic for people.
Yeah, and so since I had a mohawk, they're like, "Oh, you must love music because that's the only reason we've ever seen a hairstyle."
To be fair, though, not many professions allow a mohawk.
Well, and I did listen to punk music, so maybe they were. So I'm not saying that it wasn't partially accurate the way they're pigeonholing me, but at the same time, that was something that I just used to listen to. I listen to talk radio now.
It's getting older. No, I honestly get a little bit angsty when people start talking about music. And part of that is from personally, myself, I have a difficulty.
Personally yourself? Oh, as opposed to a different personally?
Well, exactly.
Now how are you going to say it?
Adverbs! I struggle to find any subject about music that I can feel comfortable talking about, and that is my own personal thing. But I find, because I'm more sensitive to that conversation, I find that people bring that conversation up as a starting conversation. It's
like
a way
that
to get
or
to
the
know
weather.
You. Yeah, I mean, for me, it drives me crazy because I want to actually have a discussion where I can learn something from somebody, but something more objective.
But you can't learn something about music?
Well, no, it's just bands and musicians and songs.
Is this why every time I go to your house you try to get me to listen to sitar music the whole time?
It's nameless background music, yes.
I don't think sitar music is background music because the whole time all I can hear is a...
One more time? So, I mean, for me, it drives me crazy that people want to talk about things that I cannot be right in.
Oh, I can see how that would bother you. Okay, that makes a lot more sense to me. So you don't like to talk about stuff that's subjective.
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
Because if it's objective, then you can know the right part of it, and then that way you can always be right.
Well, there you go.
Oh, so I guess you're hitting on my main gripe then. Is that Jeffrey always has to be right?
Is that the main gripe? I thought we were talking. Jeffrey's often right. There's a difference.
All right, man. You say so. I'm sure in your own head, I'm sure you're right all the time, subjective or objective.
Yeah. So no, when it comes to music, though, I don't even know where to start with all my gripes on music. But the first one I'd say is I have a problem with the way music it becomes central to going out on the weekends or in the evenings.
Oh, what kind of band do you want to see tonight, or what do you mean?
I don't mind listening to music when I'm at a bar, but I want more background music so you can talk to your friends. You can actually have conversations.
Yeah, I don't like going to a place that the music is so loud that you can't hear anybody unless I'm out there, cutting the rug.
What?
Dancing. You've never heard that term before?
No, I've never.
You've
heard that
never
term
heard the
either.
term "cutting the rug"?
Do I look like a dancer?
No, you do not look like a dancer.
I think when it comes down to, I read a wonderful article on Salon that was talking about our cafes are too quiet and our bars are too noisy for democracy to persist. And it was it was about this idea that bars and cafes are this central hub where you exchange ideas. And I hate that. I always leave the bar as soon as the band starts up because for some reason they have to not only play music but make you swallow it.
Yeah, and okay, and I would definitely agree with you because I definitely, like I said, I don't like it when I can't hear what somebody's talking about unless all they're talking about is how their entire life is music, and the only thing they do is listen to it. I get it. You really enjoy it and you like listening to it, but if your entire life is music, then pick up an instrument and play it because then that means that you have a love for it.
Actually, I've always been curious about that because I have been musically deficient and I've never been able to play an instrument. I was wondering, in your opinion, do you think that's more of a language or a skill?
I do. I think people that if they love music and they pick up an instrument, it's easier for them to play other instruments.
Yeah.
And that is kind of similar to language. Where, like if you speak more than one language, it's easier for you to pick up multiple languages.
Okay, I can see that. I don't know. It's more of exercising the particular aspect of the brain that's accommodating for more music understanding. Perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really sure. I just definitely so many times people are like, my life is music, and it's just like, oh wow, like so you must play in a band then or something. Same thing that they would say about me, just not dealing with a haircut, and they're like, no, but I listen to my iPod all the time.
That's escapism.
Yeah, and it's just you're getting your mind wrapped in something so you don't have to think about your own issues.
Yeah,
that's why I listen to talk, so I can listen to all the other issues in the world.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I personally can't relax unless I'm absorbing something new, like listening to NPR, for example.
Absorbing something new, even if it's wrong and subjective.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can listen to that. You just know that they're wrong.
I mean, I still read the Bible.
Because they're not you, right?
I still read the Bible every once in a while. I mean, that's wrong as hell, but you're gonna absorb at least a perspective from it.
True. All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're open to wrong perspectives. Yeah. Otherwise, you shouldn't be on this podcast.
In this world, I have to be. No. Actually, talking about music, I think it actually provides a wonderful opportunity to transition into the next topic. I'm actually really excited about this because a few episodes ago, whenever we decided to air this, we were talking about the drug war, and we had the opportunity to call out to someone.
Yep.
A gentleman named Bennett from California. Mm-hmm. And it was
he wanted to get in on the conversation on the drug war and had some smart things to say about it.
Really, I really enjoyed listening to his discussion, and I was kind of hoping there'd be more.
I wouldn't say he's a smart guy, but he had a smart insight into it.
Well, my regret, of course, was that we weren't able to really express dialogue over the phone. It was more like listening to him and then talking about it a little bit afterwards.
Correct.
And then he sent us an email saying how much he enjoyed being on the show, and we heard that he was traveling through the country and happened to be coming through Fargo, North Dakota, of all places. I'm not sure why. But we couldn't miss the opportunity.
Right. So we actually have him on with us today. And so that's why I was giving him a little flack, because he is here in the studio with us. I said he's not a smart guy, but I'm sure as you listen to this episode, you will understand that he absolutely is. Everybody, please welcome Bennett from California.
Bennett!
Hey there. Thanks for getting your shots in, like from the front instead of from the back. I love that. I'll take them from the front all day. That's great.
Wow.
Wait, was that a gay reference? Like, you don't want to take shots in the back?
Bennett, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, man. I am from Virginia, live in California now, and I am up in the Pacific Northwest in the plains a lot. And so, I love traveling. I end up being able to travel a whole lot at a young age, which I think is an awesome thing to do. And a lot of people talk about it like they Instagram about it, and I don't have an Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. I just like kind of seeing the country and meeting different people. occasionally meet really cool people. Other times, meet people like Jeffrey, and so it just kind of.
I like this. I'm already liking the way this episode is going.
Touche. Okay. What do you think about our gripe pertaining to music?
Oh,
Well, and so it should be said that you're a musician, right?
I have hobbies.
Okay, so all right, sounds good. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think that music has a really fundamental role in human nature and in the way that we are like social creatures and we express ourselves in music. And I think that there's something I almost feel like music exists without people, because I think that when you look at how old it is and how ingrained it's been in society for a really long time, and the way that people talk about it and really analyze it scientifically in a lot of ways, I think that it's really nothing but dividing time up, which is a really interesting concept that I heard probably a year ago, and it totally changed the way that I thought about music, because it really does just it puts time in really regular segments, and the way that people express music, I think, is something much greater than just like wanting to get their emotions out in a song. Unless we're talking about pop music for the last 20 years. But besides that, it really is, I think it's an expression of something that's like universal and would exist without people. I think that music is something that's way more universal than people. So
It's interesting.
Well, I guess, and see, I guess I'm a big sci-fi nerd, so like when you say that, like it's funny, like how many movies I've watched where they're just like, oh, they're like music, that's an Earth thing.
I could have told you like sci-fi movies just by looking at you. I'd be like, that guy's definitely into sci-fi.
And you would be correct.
And no longer sports a mohawk.
That's true. No, now it's some weird hard part thing. I don't know what's going on.
No, I find this very interesting because we're looking at in anthropology, we're looking at our close relatives, the Neanderthals and other species.
Your close relatives, Neanderthals.
Yeah, I'm blonde. That's where the blonde
Has a
genes
giant
come from.
forehead.
I was going by your
And what we're finding is that the Neanderthals had musical instruments long before humans ever did, and it seems to be some part of the evolutionary process in order to express oneself. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I kind of wonder. I'm sure humans were not the first to murder each other with things like guitars. I'm sure that happened in Neanderthal culture too. Someone gets really mad at someone else's song, and it turns into a normal Neanderthal transaction.
Has there been a lot of deaths by guitar?
I actually would really like. I just said that, and now I want to see.
I know.
If
I
that's
really
true.
want to know
I was
what the
totally going
statistic
speculation.
is.
Yeah, there's 7 billion humans. I'm sure at least one of them's gone down by guitar at some point.
That would be great.
Would you consider yourself as a person who lives their entire life with music?
What does that question mean?
Well, Jay was talking about these people who say my life is all about music.
Yeah, well, I don't like if people listen to something that I have in the car, or they're playing something that I'm really interested in. I like talking about it and like where the music came from and why they think that they like it, like why they're into that genre. But I wouldn't necessarily say that like my whole life is music, even though it's actually something that I'd like to pursue as a career. So I wouldn't say
music.
Yeah, absolutely. I love playing it. I really fell in love with a lot of songs from like the 60s, like really classic Motown stuff. And I started off with classic rock. I'm not really a big fan of classic rock anymore. But yeah, as far as like it being a really integral part of my life, something where I feel like I'd be crazy if I didn't have it, yes, music would fit in that category.
Okay.
So I guess. So what do you think about what I said though? Like people. I mean, how do you feel about people that say that their entire life is music, but that's just consuming music? It's not producing any kind of music.
Well, I don't know. I'm glad that people get excited about it. Sometimes I'm really disappointed about what type of music people are excited by. But
Okay.
I feel like you can definitely love babies and not want to make one, because I actually, I don't fit in that category at all. I hate babies, and I don't want to make one either. But I feel like you could be a teacher and not want to have children. So I don't know. I'll go against your gripe on that one.
Oh,
But when people say I love music, blah blah, and then they want to show you their favorite song and like talk to you about it, if you don't like it, it puts you in a really weird situation where
That's
you're like,
true.
your ears and brain don't work the same way as mine do. This is
That's how I feel when someone wants to read their poetry to me.
I think anybody who doesn't write poetry feels that way about poetry, and probably even
That's true.
poets.
That is true.
Probably even poets that don't. They're like, I didn't write it. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So
go ahead.
No, I was. So welcome to the Open Mic Gripe, and this is a place where we want to hear what's scratching at the back of your brain. We want to hear what's bothering you.
Are you starting over the episode?
No, I'm once again getting back to the basics, and I want to know. In your life, what would you say is just something that grinds your gears?
Well, I'll start with a disclaimer that I'm not one to complain. I don't like complaining, and I don't like people who complain. So this is going to be...
Wait, what are you doing here?
I'm just kidding. I'll separate the idea from the people. I don't like complaints. How about that?
I was wondering, he complimented the weather in Fargo, so I thought this guy's optimistic.
Well, this is...
I'm terribly optimistic, but I'd say, like, if I had to think of one thing right now that I really, really don't like about the way that it seems to be like a social trend, I'd say selective science is probably my biggest thing.
Selective science?
Yeah. I think when people want to take science piecemeal and not really subscribe to the notion of what science is all about, which is essentially trial and error from professionals.
Right.
I think that you can't take some science. You can't be like anti-vaccine and also talk about like something completely different. You can't discuss like economics from a scientific like trial and error base and then talk about vaccines or talk about like, you know, like, I don't know. For me, one of those things would be like fluoridating the water.
Okay.
So I see a disconnect there that I really don't like, where someone won't say, okay, well, in the method that I accept things and the way that I take my information in, and it's all like I think you either adopt the scientific method and why it's produced all the technology and all the cool things it has for mankind, or you just say, like, I don't really subscribe to that notion. And that's cool if you don't want to do that, but enjoy your Amish neighborhood if that's the case.
So anybody who is against using vaccines on their children, please send your emails to openmygripe@gmail.com, subject line, Bennett was wrong, and we will delete it immediately.
No, we'll check it out. We'll read it. Of course we will.
Oh, yeah. Of course we'll read it.
Well, hey, I would actually like to hear somebody who's very passionate about it, somebody that probably has a kid that is autistic, and they blame vaccines.
You want to get Jenny McCarthy on here?
Does she have a kid that
Yeah.
has autism? Okay, that's how. I just know that she's married to Donnie Wahlberg, or they're together. I don't know that much about.
Was he one of the new kids on the block?
No, that was Mark Wahlberg, his brother.
Oh, okay. Well, so
see, I just like you guys are in connect with the news. I'm in connect with the not news.
okay. Well, in that case, yeah. Okay.
Haven't you seen the Wahlburgers?
In all honesty, I would really love to hear from an anti-vaxxer on this program.
Yes, absolutely. So that's what I mean. Is definitely send us your email, and we would actually like to hear your real opinion on it, and why you believe the way that you did, and what your complaint, your gripe is about vaccines, and why you feel that way.
If you would be willing to call in the show, or at least have us call you, because we'd love to get your voice.
Well, I will look for your last name in the reports that talk about measles and smallpox outbreaks. So go ahead and do it at your own peril.
Vaccinated.
Yeah.
Well, and it definitely is a problem, because I know that if I had any kids, I would vaccinate my kids, and I wouldn't want to send them to a school if I found out that they're kids that weren't vaccinated for some of these things. I mean, I'm sure you guys could talk to. I mean, the whole causation correlation thing. I mean, that's what the comes. What are you looking at? You're looking at me like.
Well, no. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Oh, all right.
But no, I'm going back to Bennett's point. I really agree with this position that you have to take science as a whole, because it only works to remove human bias, for the most part, as a whole, by taking everything, not just the things that agree with your own position.
Right.
Well, science is also, I mean, it's not just peppered. It's like the whole history of science is people being proven wrong. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I feel like that's something you kind of have to subscribe to as a philosophy, is that like every scientific outbreak or everything that comes out that's like a major discovery is like...
I like that it's a scientific outbreak.
A scientific outbreak. Yeah.
Like, it's very catchy.
Yeah, the zombies would be like that, yeah. But no, everything that comes out that's like a major discovery or like some groundbreaking study that's scientific is a refutation of whatever the previously accepted norm was. So, I mean, like it's not something that happens in science. Like the only way science has ever happened has been through breakthroughs that are,
well, and that's
disprove everything that previously was.
And that's one thing that like kind of like the disconnect between people that maybe think that they're using the scientific method and scientists is when a scientist, they don't care. They can work their entire life, and if at the end they find out that they're proved wrong, they don't make excuses to point out how no, they're right. They're like, oh, I've made a discovery. I am wrong. Time to work on figuring out the next thing. I mean, that's one thing that I love about it is that when they follow scientific method, if it shows that they're wrong, they were wrong.
I'd actually read a wonderful anecdote about a professor at Cambridge. I could certainly find the name for you if I looked hard enough, but this idea that there was a professor who spent his entire life researching one particular aspect of biological evolution. And one day somebody came in, a guest speaker, and just completely debunked or disproved his entire hypothesis. And so he didn't get angry. 30 years of research and work, he said, thank you. Because that is the very strength of science itself that is willing to change.
We have to admit, though, that would suck pretty horribly.
Yeah.
Like, 3 decades. God.
There goes
like you feel shitty right before you die.
That would suck.
That would suck real bad. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. It's have you personally come across anything like this recently with somebody choosing a piece of science?
Well, I think that we really focused on one of the popular issues now, which is either vaccinating or not believing in vaccinations at all. And
I love how we were. And these aren't your words. I've seen them all over the place. When people say "believe in," it's like, do you buy that religion of vaccines? It's believe. It's and I see.
Do
this,
you have faith in vaccination?
It would be. There are a lot of things you can say believe in. You believe in your government because at some point it's based on trust and some remote element of faith.
I don't believe in our government. I feel it's all made up. It's not a real thing.
Fair enough.
I think the government is very largely selective science too. So that's my problem with them. But
fair enough. I just I'm always careful with prepositions. So I would say believe that.
Oh, it was a semantic slip up on my part. So,
No. I've heard this all the time.
Yeah.
That people say believe. Do you believe in evolution? It's like, no, I believe that evolution by natural selection is the best possible explanation.
Or I believe that in the eyes of science, what we know right now to be closer to fact than anything else is, evolution through natural selection. That's like you believing science, essentially.
Yeah.
So what I said was believe in. It's kind of not the right way to put it, but yeah.
No, I mean that's how it's portrayed in the media. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So I want to pick your brain. I feel like you've got a lot of things. You.
Oh, and by the way, I did try to look up how many people have been killed by guitars. Couldn't find anything. Apparently, that's not a large enough search. It just keeps putting in guns.
Wait. I've seen Desperado. Does that count?
I don't think they're counting movies in U.S. statistics.
Yeah, especially movies filmed in Mexico.
yeah, probably not.
Well, if 14 people die from vending machines falling on them each year,
somebody
must
had to have been killed by a guitar.
I certainly
have you been killed by a guitar? Please email us.
I hope we don't leave the listeners wondering about what the total, the cumulative total of deaths by guitar in human history is, but we might have to.
Well, I hope they do, and if they figure it out, let us know, because that would be an interesting thing.
If you have slayed someone that was pissing you off with a guitar, also please touch base with these guys, because I would love to know.
Yeah, you might want to do it from an anonymous email then, if you would actually kill the person with the guitar.
If you did it with an acoustic, I would be very impressed.
Well, here you go, guys. I've got something for you here. This was from 2012. Mega church pastor beaten to death with electric guitar by a man who rammed car into church.
Oh, well, one. Well, we have one, then.
Wow. There's apparently a lot more. I'm finding all kinds of news stories.
You're starting with probably the best story that's ever happened.
Yeah.
It's really less leading with your best foot right there.
Yeah, leading with the punchline. But yeah, so sorry to interrupt. But yeah, so Bennett, go on. You can go on and move on to your next gripe or whatever Jeffrey was saying before.
Do you want to gripe first? Or do you want me to keep griping?
I want to hear your gripes.
Okay. Man, I think another one is people that keep asshole dogs.
You mean people who don't train their dogs?
People that say that, like, every time their dog does something, like bites someone's hand or like bares its teeth or is like aggressive or like poops on the floor in their house, and they're like, oh man, he did it again, I should really do something about it. But then, like, when you see the dog the next time, if it hasn't died from negligence, then it's typically doing the same shit that it did before. And it's the person making the same excuses. So,
Well,
yeah.
and I definitely have something to say to that because, Jeffrey, you've been around my dogs.
Yes, I have.
One of my dogs, I mean, they're both rescues. And actually, one of the best compliments I ever got is a vet told me, she's like, this dog is really, my first dog, Ruger, she's like, this dog is really lucky that you adopted him. She's like, because he was probably a borderline red case, which means that he was so aggressive that he could not be adopted. But she had saw him after I'd worked with him, and like he is not fond of strangers, but he doesn't bite anymore. Because like when you got here, I put him in his kennel because he was barking too much and being a little too aggressive, and he needs to get used to somebody, but I don't think it's cute. I actually discipline my dogs, and that means that they go in their kennel when they're acting up, and that's you need to discipline dogs. I don't think there is such a thing as asshole dogs. I think there's asshole owners.
Yeah, I just get so impatient when people have dogs and they have that look on their face like, oh, geez, what are they up to again?
Yeah,
and I just
they're not kids.
Well, I mean, it's like they'll react in public when they see their dogs misbehaving, instead of actually spending the time to train them and condition them to the rest of society.
And I think part of that is because they treat them like kids. They treat them as humans, and they don't treat them as dogs, as how dogs need to be trained. You like when people like grab like a dog does something, and you grab his face, and you're like, no, don't do that. You can't do that. You're praising that dog when you do that because you're giving that dog attention that it wants.
Yeah.
That is not how you train that dog to not do that.
Or you're just an asshole to your dog, and you scold it for random reasons, or you don't know how to scold it properly.
Or
Take out your
you
anger.
can definitely, beat a dog and then it's aggressive towards other people. Yeah, that definitely happens as well through negligence or anything.
So asshole dogs might not be the cause.
No.
Maybe not. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about people here.
Yeah.
I was being non-confrontational, guys.
We have a problem with the people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Dogs. I have a basil plant at home. That's about the most responsibility I can handle.
How's it doing? Is it doing okay?
I'm not going to lie. It died about a month ago. I forgot to feed it.
See, that's one thing that I like about dogs over plants is that if I forget to give him a meal, my one dog is really vocal and will let me know. He'll stand over by his bowl and howl. I'll be like, oh, yeah, I kind of skipped a breakfast for you today. He'll let me know.
Household plants tend to be pacifists.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Although there is a thing that you can put, into your pot plant, and your plant will tweet.
What?
You can set up a Twitter account for your plant, and your plant will tweet when it needs stuff.
I don't know. If you can't take care of, if you can't remember, no, I'm being a hypocrite here. I fully understand this, but if you can't be responsible enough to feed a plant regularly,
but hey, well, if you're on your phone a lot or on a computer a lot, why not? Hey, then your plant just like tweets and says, "Hey, I'm a little thirsty." Then you go, you feed your plant, and then you get on with your life.
Jay, we clearly use the internet to research different things.
Yes, we do. Again, I think we're kind of coming to that understanding. There's a lot of stuff that you guys talk about, no idea. But I'm going to have some knowledge that's going to be a little bit more off the wall.
You must spend all your time on crowdfunding websites.
You do. Yes, I do. I spend a lot of time on crowdfunding.
Gripe. How can people spend so much goddamn money on crowdfunding websites? I understand participating in a project that you really believe in, but there are people like Jay who actively browse these websites looking for places to just throw their money.
Well, hey, you get a lot of. I always go for ones that I I'm not gonna. There is a website that does crowdfunding that even if they don't hit their goal, they still keep your money. I avoid that one. I go for one that if they don't hit their goal, you get your money back. And I always pick perks that I am going to get something, and a lot of times I'm getting a discount on something that I think would be neat to have, and at the same time I'm helping somebody out, usually with a dream of theirs. And so I figure that that's a good way that I'm still getting something, they're getting their dream.
You're doing the equivalent of browsing the dollar store, though. You're like, well, this is a bargain.
Browsing, the dollar store. If the dollar store was made up of stuff that you have never seen before. Okay, a good example is I just showed Bennett a book that was made out of stone, and he thought that was pretty great, and he wanted to write something with Sharpie. It doesn't bleed through the papers. He thought it was pretty great. That was off one of those crowdfunding sites.
Bennett, you mentioned that you're an artist.
Did I?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
In casual conversation at some point, not on this podcast.
No, not on the podcast, but I'm saying the reason I'm bringing this up, he's an artist. He would care about those kinds of things. Are you an artist?
Well,
no.
I have a question for you. Sorry to interrupt, Jeffrey. I'm kind of curious. Like, are you like the closest thing that Fargo has, like the Bill and Belinda Gates Foundation, or do you just go on there because like you just want to know what cool shit is out there? Like, is it altruistic or is it like selfish? Are you like, I want to buy cool shit that nobody else has in Fargo, which is easy to do?
It would definitely be the second one.
Okay.
Yeah. But at the same time, in that selfish nature, if I can also help somebody out besides like a large corporation, I would much rather do that. I am much more for like smaller stores and
right. But what do people get besides the occasional perk? So let's say there's a video game being released and that's funded by the crowds. You get a copy of the game,
right?
Okay. What else? I mean, there's got to be a reason why people are willing to invest money on a product that hasn't been released yet. Do people get a rush feeling like they're participating in something?
Yeah, I'm sure for some people, absolutely. Again, I'm sure for some people, although we've discussed that we don't feel that there's really anything as true altruism because does come from some kind of a place that is usually kind of selfish because it makes them feel better. I think maybe that's what some people do is that they really want to help people accomplish their dreams, and I think that's a great thing.
Have you been getting into the old Ayn Rand? Is that what you're...
Okay.
Have you been reading Ayn Rand?
Okay, I have. Now, not on the podcast. I have pointed out, Bennett, I don't read books, so you know that is not correct.
You've been watching Ayn Rand videos.
He Googled Ayn Rand once.
That I might have done.
He TLDR'd everything.
Yeah, that is a TLDR.
Yeah.
Too long, didn't read.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Is that acronym too much for you?
Yes, I like TLDR.
J is limited to 3-letter acronyms. OMG. Open my gripe.
Yes, good plug. Good plug in the middle of our podcast.
Sorry. Have you ever purchased anything on one of these websites?
One of the crowdfunding websites?
Yeah.
I've given it hard thought when people that I know have posted, hey, this is really cool. And I may have ever considered buying like 3 different things, but I've never actually done it, no.
Fair enough.
I'm a virgin of crowdsourcing things.
I thought about it with the Super Troopers 2 movie coming up. Seemed like a worthy investment.
Well, see, and I just think there's a lot more worthy investments. So, and
That's fair.
and the thing is, if you walk around my house, there is a lot of stuff where people will be like, "Oh, this is neat. What is this?" I just like, I'm in my 30s and I'm a bachelor. What else am I supposed to be spending my money on instead of just like ridiculous crap?
That's a really good point.
What a fucking American you are.
Very much so.
This is kind of the opposite of a gripe, but I just want to say how amazing this generation is, that there are so many people who are single well into their 30s and have money to spend on frivolous shit. Mm-hmm. And
that's what all of the stuff I buy is. All completely unnecessary. Yeah. It's to fill, you know what it is? It's to fill that girlfriend-sized hole in my heart. And I just fill that with useless crap.
Wow. I don't want to know what sized hole your girlfriend-sized hole needs to be, but
See, that's a point of how that joke didn't land.
Damn it! All right, one rule that I have to keep reminding myself is we'll let Jay stick to the comedy.
And mine isn't even that good, so...
Yeah. Anyway, Bennett, save us from these horrible jokes.
Try to bring us back here.
Well, I feel like I got two big gripes out. What are y'all griping on? Do you want to gripe on some of this stuff, or do you have anything else?
We of course we want to know your gripes. I mean, we can gripe about whatever we want when you're not here.
We don't exactly get people from California and Fargo very often, so let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that maybe another one might be the present water situation in California.
Oh, okay.
And I'm actually taking this one up directly with the man upstairs because he's really fucked a lot of us over out there.
You have somebody
you mean
G-O-D.
You mean Bob who lives in the upstairs apartment?
No. This is Guy. This is like 13th floor shit.
Oh, I heard he was kind of a prick.
Yeah. Well, like he has all those things that he's done to people throughout history that a couple groups have really chronicled and still like talk about. Like, oh, he killed all these people. They were probably really bad or something.
Well, you should be happy that he's sticking with droughts for California then.
Yeah. I mean, he's clearly punishing all the sodomy that's going on out there. And
With
we're all guilty,
Schwarzenegger.
let's be honest. So, he's given us no water and it's just been really bad. So,
Side gripe. Sodomy means everything that's not vaginal intercourse. So yes, all of you blowjobbers out there, that's sodomy. Anyway, sorry.
You mean
you
fun.
blowjobbers.
Yeah, fun outlawed. Fun is outlawed.
Well, I mean, do they have any? I mean, what is California doing about it? Do they have any kind of plans or to do anything about this drought? Or
Well, I hear that there's a lot of praying. That's the solution.
oh, you can hear
we
all
have
the
so
praying.
far,
Whoa!
yeah.
Now that is something that would be
Yeah.
interesting.
No, I actually have no idea what they're going to do about it, and no, it's actually like it's just a natural thing from being in California. A lot of people think of California as like a paradise, and it is really the desert next to the ocean. Even Southern California, it's not green, especially where I live. It's like all the rocks are made up of dirt, and it's very sandy, and all the rock out there, at least where I am, is sandstone, and it's like it's a desert next to the ocean.
Yeah.
So I think living out there, it's just one of the things you kind of accept is that like there are earthquakes, there are natural phenomena that are not very pleasant if you happen to like own a house out there or something like that. And as far as a solution, I think they'll actually probably start shipping water in from different places if they can, because they are talking about desalinating the water, but that's a horrible process. I mean, like
It's really expensive right now.
I hear that
Yeah.
Florida is going to soon have an excess of water.
we'll take that.
See, I lived down in LA, and I really did enjoy it, and it was interesting because we would only get a rainfall maybe once a month. I didn't get to experience any earthquakes when I was out there. That was something that I did want to experience because I've living in North Dakota. I have lived all over the country, but more North Dakota for a lot of it, and no earthquakes here.
Earthquakes are really fun as long as nobody gets hurt.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Sorry. I just really enjoy the feeling of something in your head that's screaming, there's something wrong here, and you don't know what it is yet. When you feel an earthquake.
Yeah, I'm sure the first time, I'm sure my brain would go, what is that?
Yeah.
Well, my reaction from all the earthquakes that I've been through, which only a couple in California, actually more in Virginia than California.
Really?
And the first thing is always like, I don't know, for me, it's always like, am I drunk? Like something like, because it hits you and you're like,
That's
you don't
exactly
think
what
that it
it's
could
like.
possibly be the Earth, even though it's just
Right.
the Earth is just doing something that it periodically does in different places, especially the really like tectonically active places. And so, it's actually kind of an interesting experience, and it's under like Richter scale 3. Yeah, kind of fun.
It
That
feels
number.
surreal.
What? So over Richter 3, what's having been in it, like what's the difference?
Well, I think the one that I had in Virginia was like a 5, and it was crazy because everything was shaking.
Yeah.
I was in a Dillard's. I still remember it. And like stuff was falling off everywhere. This is Virginia. I mean, like you just don't think that there would be like earthquakes out there.
When you mentioned that, I was just like, oh, I guess I've never equated earthquakes to Virginia. Sorry, I like.
I'm not laughing at that one.
I don't know.
No, when I was living in Japan, I woke up in the middle of the night and I went through I didn't know it at the time, but it was I think roughly around a 7-point earthquake, and it was. I didn't understand the seriousness of it. And I woke up, and the first thing I saw was my alarm clock jumping across the floor to me. And I was like, oh, geez, what did I eat? And then
that blowfish.
yeah, right. the dresser starts sliding towards my bed.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I was like, okay, maybe I should try to get up now. Really, despite the magnitude of it, it really wasn't that serious. Not many people got injured. It was just, day in Japan.
Well, that brings me to another gripe: the fact that Japan exists. So,
Oh wow!
let me, for all you Japanese listeners out there, nothing against the people of Japan, but the fact that it's built in a place. I mean, they're putting skyscrapers in a place that is so prone to earthquakes that every report that I've read on this is saying that they're gonna have a couple more really big ones, and they haven't had the one that pretty much ends.
The earthquakes are not the problem; it's the tsunamis. And the buildings. Every building in Japan is constructed with this engineering technology. I wish I could explain it with greater detail to resist earthquakes, including this ancient architecture that's built in the Japanese historic sites. They're just not damaged by earthquakes.
Well, and when I was in Seattle, we were up in the Space Needle, and I think somebody was talking about how they're just they'd be afraid if there was an earthquake, and they're just that would be the safest place that you could be in an earthquake. Well, no, just because the way that it is built, it's built to withstand earthquakes and all that movement.
Right.
You would be fine up there. I'm not saying it wouldn't be scary, but you would be fine up there, and you would be more likely to be injured in a lower building that isn't made to move the way the Space Needle is.
Absolutely. Well, which has always surprised me. I lived in China during the Sichuan earthquake. And it's a horrible thing to say, but everyone saw this coming. The entire country is built with unreinforced masonry, bricks and mortar. How do you... Mortar. There we go. And that just creates vibration. Of course, buildings are going to fall. So it ticked me off because that was right before the Olympics, and all the aid money went to the government and not to the area. Well, most of it.
Well, that's a very typical thing for aid money to do. That's generally happens aid money.
Anyway,
so.
I want to, if we could go back to a gripe that I can come up with about the drought in California. Why?
Why?
Is that the reason why you didn't flush the toilet?
Yeah.
Okay, it's
a habit. No, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. That's it. That's the thing.
You know what? My family. It's not like my family is really, environment conscious. But I grew up on a farm, and that was a common thing that we would do. Is just because we used to have our own wells, so we would just that's the same thing. If it's yellow, let it mellow.
And I would also like to see how dark people can get, the pool of urine in the toilet before someone flushes it. That's disgusting. All these urines put together. Well, I'd like to see if it could go orange or something before people flush
usually
it.
just have to let mine go in there because I don't drink enough water, and it usually comes out looking kind of like rust. Especially when I had malaria, that looked like rust. That's if you ever have malaria, you pee dark yellow because your liver's shutting down. Dark orange, yeah.
Okay. I mean, if you live around this part of the country, there's always been an abundance of water, especially around Minnesota. And Canada has crazy amount of proportion of fresh water in the entire world. We're pretty close to Canada. We can just mooch off of them if need. But,
it would cost us.
Would it?
Yeah.
More than their oil?
More than their oil? Well... I don't want to get into that. That's a completely different gripe. Is the cost of shipping and exporting, exporting and importing from Canada to the U.S. To me, it's always seemed a little slanted because it's easier for them to bring stuff in and sell stuff than it is for us to export it to Canada and sell it. So,
do we export?
I'm not saying a lot, but I mean, you got to realize I'm talking about a farming background. Oh. So I'm talking about grain coming in from Canada. So again, completely different gripe.
So Bennett, you're traveling a lot, it sounds like.
Yeah.
You're seeing all different parts of the country.
No.
No?
No.
What parts of the country do you...
The highways.
Yeah. Pacific Northwest, mainly. Yeah.
Okay.
Pacific Northwest and Plains.
Okay.
So-
And across your travels, is there anything that you see on the road that every time you see it just makes you want to facepalm?
Oh, man.
Yeah, and in case this helps you, like anything that you even see, it would be interesting to know what you see in your travels consistently across the U.S. Like something that happens in every area that you're like, I can't believe every place does this.
Well, it's been... thank goodness I've been really lucky on the road, really fortunate in that I haven't been in any like accidents or anything like that. It's been generally safe, and I've just gotten a whole lot better at driving by myself, which is really cool for listening to podcasts. But I'd say like on this, there was a trip I took about 3 months ago where I got pulled over twice in 3 days, really late at night, because my car had out-of-state plates, and it was a speed trap. Both times, one of them was for like 6 miles an hour over, and one of them was for like 9 miles an hour over. And I really think that I got pulled over because the policeman couldn't see if I was like black. I think that's the only reason why I got pulled over, is because like they kind of wanted to investigate stuff.
What
And-
reason do you have to think that?
Well, so I had plates from California and I want to say like Texas or something. And I'm not saying that they'd be profiling for states. I think it's just kind of an out-of-state thing.
Right.
But I know that that would probably be one of my top gripes is the state of policing in the United States right now. That's a really big thing. And I feel
Pretty
like
big news right now.
yeah, and so I feel like at least in those situations, I wasn't exactly. I mean, there's no way that they would. I would be the least likely person to be profiled in that situation. But because I was on the road late at night, I got pulled over for what was nothing less than bullshit offenses. Like nothing. I was going like 6 over in a downtown area. It's like 41 in a 35 at one point. And the policeman pulls me over. And when he realizes that I'm not intoxicated at all, I've been on the road for a while, and I'm answering all of his questions. And I mean, honestly, I don't give them consent to do hardly anything if I can help it. But I was friendly to him, like totally like, oh yeah, man, sorry about that. Like answering all the questions very directly, admitting fault, and
We have a
taking it that
very
way.
different way of dealing with the police.
Well, actually, so okay, so
Oh, dear.
no, and I get that because I used it to be the exact same way. Like these people do not have the authority that they're asserting on a normal basis. And so I know that in the situation that I'm in, like I'm 28 years old, I'm a white male. They don't like, I can't talk about police victimization, police brutalization, stuff like that. At least not from a first person perspective, because I don't necessarily get profiled. And so I really hate that it happens. And I really hate that that's why they would pull anyone over. And I think that they were both speed traps, but when they realized that there was nothing else they were going to get me on, they weren't going to send me to local court for 6, 7, 8, 9 miles an hour over. They didn't have any interest in me after that. I mean, both the stops took less than like 5 minutes. They basically asked to see my registration, because they were rental cars, and my license. And I answered everything, and they basically just got me out of there to look for other people. And I don't know. I just I didn't like either one of those situations at all.
Right. Were they what kind of cars were they? Were they or color or anything? Because
They're both new rental cars. The one they're generally like
Pretty
not-
generic?
Yeah, it's pretty
Okay,
generic.
not flashy
Hyundai's
or anything.
Yeah, Hyundai and a Toyota or a Nissan or something. I think.
I'm just appalled that any police officer would consider this a good use of their time.
Well, I actually think they're incentivized that way because the way that it's set up right now, one of the things that is expressly outlawed as of recent is quotas. I mean, they got rid of quotas like 5 or 10 years ago.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, the quotas are totally illegal. I think they're illegal in every state, and so they can't come out and say, "Hey, we need this much revenue,
Right.
so you guys should be writing this kind of ticket, this
Right.
many of them, and having like surges close to the end of the month." But I don't know of one police department that's come out and actually said, "This is what our citation reports look like from this month. We're not doing quotas." They all do. They all continue to do quotas.
right.
And the people that suffer from that are the same people that get profiled anyway. If there weren't quotas, it would still be, generally poor minorities, which is it's just ridiculous, I think.
Right.
Well, I mean, now the big conversation now is of course how many municipal governments are funding themselves via minor violations, traffic violations, parking tickets,
which is not a new thing,
right?
Because if you look at something like a
Okay.
parking ticket, I'm actually kind of glad that you guys brought this up, got me to gripe a little bit more, because this might take the cake for right now. I can't stand these bullshit fees that people get for stuff that really doesn't matter, like a parking ticket, because it's as a source of revenue. Because if you look at it in a practical sense, if you park in a city somewhere and you park on a curb and there's a parking meter there, what they're charging you for parking there for like an hour at the most is like $2, right? And that's a really expensive. That's like New York. That's like San Francisco. But if you fail to pay the money, that's actually what they want to happen, is you to forget about the meter, and then they charge you like $30 right off the bat. In a lot of cases, if you're like in one of these really special zones, it'll be like $50 or like $100 just for this, like parking your car in backwards as opposed to forward. And so if it were just about the money that they get from the parking, then all they would ask you for is what you didn't pay from parking in that space for that amount of time. But it's incentivized for them to make criminals out of everybody. I mean, that's kind of what it's turned into. It's a bunch of making offenders of everyone and charging them a bunch of money. And I really don't think revenue should be taken in that way.
Well, and just by experience, like I used to live in Michigan. I would go to Chicago, and when you're not accustomed to having metered parking, like they'll have a sign and it'll show an arrow that way, and then I can't find actually where to even pay my meter. And so then I leave myself open to a big fine just because I can't understand how your system works. And does that make me a criminal? Like, because I can't understand your parking system. Now, granted, there's probably some ignorance on my part, but then it's still having to reach out to people on the street going, how do I figure this out?
Well, it's also, it's kind of, I think it's kind of telltale that when you have to go pay something like that, if you want to challenge it, that is a hugely lengthy process.
Right.
So they've set it up so that people are really incentivized to pay money that's probably worth what their time is, based on how much it would take them to reverse the ticket or to challenge it and go through the multiple contacts with different people at the Department of Transportation or wherever it is that issued your citation. Yeah. They really make it so that once they write you a ticket, it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong, you would basically have to spend more time than it's even worth to just pay it outright.
I am personally, I'm a fan of big government, but I'll also be the first to admit that this is a system which is not easily accessible by the people who pay taxes. And if you, for example, go to any website to find information about these issues,
it's not easy.
I mean, they're designed for the people who run the websites, not for the people who need to use the websites. And I absolutely agree with this. It's very inaccessible.
I think another thing that should also be looked at too is I don't know necessarily how I'd go about fixing it or saying that one person should pay more than another person in that particular situation, but I do think it's pretty terrible that when they charge like $50 or $100, or maybe like let's say a speeding ticket, to a rich person, paying $300 for a speeding ticket is no big deal.
Right, but it does make a big difference to somebody who's barely making car payments.
If that's like their week's wages or even more than that in some cases, and they screw up one time and they have they might get reckless driving. If the judge isn't lenient, that person's spending like money that they don't have, and that is a horrific debt situation to be in because they charge you interest on not paying it. If you want to set up a payment plan to do it, they charge you a bunch of money. Not
to mention, as you pointed out, that they naturally discriminate for those people who might fall into the lower income brackets, and that's going to be a huge issue for just perpetuating poverty.
I did like that. Kalamazoo is where I lived in Michigan, and I like that they actually one time I got a parking ticket and I went in to go pay it. And she's just like, "Oh, you don't need to pay this." And I was like, "Okay, why?" She's like, "Oh, we can forgive one every 6 months." I was
really?
Like, yeah.
What?
And see, and maybe this is why they were a private company. That did it.
Well, private companies don't have to worry about the income, and I've actually seen this in terms of debt collection as well, where people have told. I mean, this is not something they advertise, but debt collection companies, for example, as far as I can understand, this is
because they've bought the debt at a discount.
Right.
So yeah, and so of course they'd like to get the full back, but if you can't, they'd rather get some money than no money.
I actually had a mistake made about a bill, and the debt collector called, and I was like, well, of course I want to get this sorted out as soon as possible. And because perhaps just because I was being nice to her, she said, well, actually, I mean, I could even if I'll try to finagle some special things here and try to get you off the hook. But if we can't, well, at most you'll have to pay half. And
Right,
I mean,
wow.
these are things that people are not told. These are things that people have
Tricks
to
of the
learn the hard
trade.
way.
Yeah,
Right.
you basically like calling and trying to figure that out or talking to the right person, which, like you said, sometimes through government websites isn't the easiest way to even figure out.
And if you're working a full-time job, sometimes even 2 full-time jobs, you don't have the time to sit on the phone and be nice to people all the time
Right.
to find out these answers. It's a system that's set against people with very little time and money.
And the healthcare system is very similar to that as well. You can get a lot of your payment down, but you have to, there was just a story on NPR where a woman basically, she had to, her whole family, like her dad was going to lose the house after his wife got cancer, and they loved the doctors and everything, but she had basically considered it a part-time job.
Wow.
Because as soon as she would get done with her job, she would spend hours on the phone contacting everybody to try to make this into a manageable amount.
Right.
That wasn't going to basically bankrupt her entire family.
If I could end this show on any one gripe, I would have to say that there's something wrong in any given service industry, or in the case of the government, or in the case of any financial institution, that has this attitude that the people themselves have to work their ass off in order to get what they want, as opposed to having someone just there to facilitate your needs, having someone to explain things to you and walk you through it, and even help. Mm-hmm. It's oftentimes quite difficult to find just help. People are just continuing on with their job, and sometimes they aren't willing to go that extra mile to help those people who are in a difficult situation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think even the customer service industry has went a lot that way, where it's like, I hate that mentality where it used to be the customer is always right. Now it's like, screw you, I have another customer.
Yeah.
It's almost what it feels like to me anymore.
Well, especially when customer service is not within the companies that are giving the service itself.
Yeah, I understand that as well.
Wow, this has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, time has flown by today.
Yeah, Bennett,
Maybe not for you, for us it has.
do you have anything, any words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with?
Am I directing this at someone?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure.
All right, I'll plug a very common saying that I like very much. I like it when people say "no victim, no crime." So in talking about the stuff that really plagues poor people, parking violations, most especially, we talked about the drug war before, but I say no victim, no crime. So I'd say check out the idea. There's jury nullification, and no victim, no crime is associated with really protecting people from stuff that I don't think they should be ticketed for and made to pay these outrageous sums, especially if they're poor. So there you go. That's my saying for the day.
Wow.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Bennett, for coming on the show today.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And of course, Jeffrey and I would like to thank you for joining us and listening to Open Mic Gripe, the place where serious and silly complaints come to chat.
We will be bringing you new episodes every week, and we
Apparently
want
we
to
will.
encourage everyone. We will. We want to encourage everyone to participate by sending in your gripes, grievances, and opinions to openmicgripe@gmail.com. That's openmicgripe, one word, or tweet us at openmicgripe.
And of course, we hope you enjoyed this episode, but if you didn't, make sure to check us out next week when we will be discussing your gripe.
Thank you.